I support this legislation, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for scheduling it for a hearing. Amidst the wave of corporate bankruptcies triggered by the pandemic and its economic fallout, these changes are very important to ensure that employees and retirees are treated fairly in the bankruptcy process and not sidelined by powerful and well-represented corporate and financial interests. In particular, I think it's correct that the bill raises the bar for companies that want to use bankruptcy to shrink their previous commitments to retired employees. This should only be allowed when and to the extent that it's absolutely necessary. And I would note that over the years, since you and I have been members of the Judiciary Committee, we have seen bankruptcy law increasingly changed to benefit the powerful, the corporations, to the disadvantage of employees and people who don't have that power. This bill would go a long ways in changing that. Now, in addition to these reforms, I want to call attention to another bankruptcy reform that is particularly needed given the current wave of corporate bankruptcies, and that's reform of bankruptcy venue. Current law allows corporations to file for bankruptcy in the state of incorporation instead of the real world locations where their businesses and assets are actually found. This is often in Delaware. The state of incorporation typically has nothing to do with where the corporation is actually based or operating or where employees live. I have a bipartisan bill with my friend Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner that would end this form shopping and require corporations to file in a local bankruptcy court where their headquarters or where their principal assets are located. Now, it sounds arcane, but it's actually important to workers and retirees and other stakeholders in large corporate bankruptcies. They shouldn't be forced into distant bankruptcy courts in Delaware or elsewhere, which have no real ties to the companies and are distant from the employees and stakeholders who don't have corporate power. This reform would also alleviate the backlog of bankruptcy cases that's developed in Delaware and a couple of other districts. All of these reasons for venue reform are especially pressing now amidst the pandemic wave of corporate bankruptcy. So I strongly support the bill that is before us today, and I'm hopeful, Mr. Chairman, that we will have a time to take up the bipartisan reform of venue. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.